People go through this great effort because the silk of Bombyx mori is strong and breaks less often than wild silk. The filament from a single cocoon can be 3,000 feet long when it is unwound. Bombyx mori silk is whiter than wild silk, so it can absorb more dye. The filament is also round and smooth, resulting in a finer, more luminous cloth. From cocoon to thread. For thousands of years, raising silkworms to make silk was an important part of Chinese culture. Women and girls were responsible for tending the worms, processing the cocoons, spinning the thread, and weaving fabric by hand. These painstaking chores produced beautiful results. They were also inefficient, consuming many hours per day and producing only a small amount of silk cloth. Much of the ancient process survives in current practices. Cocoons are still harvested about 8 or 9 days after they form. They are placed in water so that they soften enough to be unwound without breaking the filament of raw silk. To avoid building up a surplus of unusable cocoons, a time-saving technique called reeling has been developed to unwind several cocoons at once. The cocoons are gently brushed to find the loose ends. Then the filaments are wound onto a reel. A single raw silk filament is too thin to use for weaving, so the next common step in the process, called throwing, involves twisting several filaments together to form a thread. The thrown threads are then wound onto small spools called bobbins. Silkworm spinning its cocoon, top. Weaving silk fabric in Myanmar. Advances in silk technology. Silk moth eggs and the closely guarded secret of sericulture had to be smuggled out of China before other countries could make silk. Once the basic process was known, people sought to improve the technologies used in making silk filaments into cloth. One important invention was the French reeling machine. Its great innovation was to speed up the reeling process and reduce waste. About 1800, the invention of the jacquard loom enabled silk weavers to create complex designs quickly. This mechanized loom required strong threads, so even better sericulture practices were developed. More recently, industrial weaving machines began using air to push the thread rapidly back and forth. This meant that fewer workers were needed to oversee the looms and that costs could be lowered. As a result, fine silk products were soon available at prices that more people could afford. Today, China remains the leading producer of silk, but the demand for fine mulberry silk products reaches far beyond China's borders. For this reason, people will continue seeking better, more economical ways to produce silk. A secret for 3,000 years, Chinese sericulture spread to Korea about 200 BC, and to India, Japan, and Persia about 300 AD.